The chains are off, the Man of Steel. Here's your look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse. This is Unchained Armor, Superman. When the weaponized alien called Wraith goes on a destructive rampage in the Batcave and both Batman and Wonder Woman are unable to stop him, Superman dons an armor that features a shield and battle axe to confront the electromagnetic adversary. The battle continues to the center of the Earth, where Superman finally is able to defeat him, leaving him floating in the lava at the Earth's core. Let's get things underway. And how do we get things underway when we start off these reviews? Yeah, you guys are so clever. First thing we're going to do is measure off and figure out how tall Superman stands. The Unchained armor of Supes stands 7.7 inches in height, and that in centimeters works out to be 19.6 centimeters tall. Let's get some size comparisons out of the way. Here is the Superman. Oh, love that Superman so much. And then recently we also had a look at the Batman. This was the, there we go. This was the very cool Batman in the Hellbat suit. He does take up a lot more space because, of course, he does have the wingspan of the added pieces on the back. Don't worry, Superman's also going to get going with some of that as well. But it kind of gives you an idea as to how tall these figures stand. The Hellbat suit Batman stands at about the same height as the Unchained armor Superman, and both figures are a lot taller than your standard-sized comic version Multiverse released figures. Superman, like I said, does come included with the wings that go on the back of his torso, but before we do that, if we're following the proper format of these reviews thus far, the first thing we seem to start the reviews with, and what we'll be starting this review first with, is looking at the trading card that comes included with Superman. Here, the Unchained armor, a vast departure from what we normally expect to see with Superman. He's donning this very elaborate looking costume. It looks a bit like a Gundam costume, complete with a headrest helmet. You don't normally expect to see Clark sporting a helmet, so it's very different to see him sporting it here. On the back of the card, it tells you where this is pulled from. For example, Superman Unchained number 7. I'm not as familiar with the Unchained armor as I was with the Hellbat armor, so this one I'm not as familiar with, but it says it's pulled from Superman Unchained number 7. That's not to say that Superman Unchained doesn't have the armor in any other issue. Maybe it doesn't, but it's pulled from comics in 2014. The real name, again, is Kal-El, Clark Kent being his adoptive name, and the height is 6'3", and the weight is 235 pounds. The same thing with the Hellbat suits. Again, I don't think that's factoring in the weight of the costume. I'm imagining the armor is going to add some extra weight, but it still seems the same weight as the original Superman card that we had a look at before. Move that to the side. The other thing that comes included with the figure is the circular display stand. Nothing new to report here. I'm sure I apologize at the nausea, I'm sure, of seeing the exact same things with every single review, but obviously each one of the figures is going to come with each of the same style of stand, complete with the S, or complete with the DC logo down below and the peg on the top of the display stand. It's nothing different. I mean, we've seen these countless times before, and I'm sure as we continue our way through the DC Multiverse, although to be fair, we're kind of dwindling down what's left to be looked at. There's still the Green Arrow that we'll be looking at, but they all pretty much come with the exact same stand. Okay, so let's have a look at the wings that come included with Batman or with Superman. I'm still stuck on the Hellbat suit. Apologies for that. The wings themselves attached to the back of Superman's armor. They are interesting enough. They kind of look like Voltron's wings, actually. The back of the, I guess, the Black Lion. These would be fanned out on the back of Voltron's torso. Kind of does look a little bit like that, doesn't it? Maybe not. Maybe I'm the only one that's thinking that. Before maybe we attach it to the back of the torso of Superman, I feel like I'm breaking a promise now. I'm going to be showing you the figure first, and then we'll kind of attach the wings to it after the fact. Does that sound okay? Okay, I hope so. For the armor of Superman, it kind of looks like a combination of things. Superboy Prime, for example. Kind of reminds me of Jushin Thunder Liger from the, of course, the days of wrestling. Of course, I got to throw some wrestling references in there as well. Kind of looks a bit like a Gundam, and it kind of looks a little bit like Ares, all sort of thrown together. What else would you see from this? Maybe a little bit of the Shredder? I don't know. But it's all sort of mushed and mashed together to give us this armor. I didn't have as much the invested interest in the Hellbat suit for Batman, but at the very least, I thought the costume was cool enough. And while I will admit that this is a neat-looking design for Superman, in all honesty, just between you and me, I think if I wasn't actually picking these up to showcase them to you guys, I probably wouldn't have even picked up the Unchained Armor Superman, in all honesty. Again, it's a nice-looking costume, but I don't see it as really something that will be a mainstay, permanently fixed piece in my collection. I mean, it does look good. What you don't really see is Superman's face. It sort of gets lost in there. You do see some eyes, but that's pretty much about it. It does have, to its credit, some nice metallic colors. Some reds, some blues, and some, of course, silvers, making up the very fanned-out face of his kind of this headdress armored helmet that he wears. It's got some really cool layers to it, some neat-looking sculpts, and even if you spin it around, it's got a lot of cool sculpts going on the back there as well. Again, I feel like I'm very much looking at maybe a cross between, again, a Gundam and, again, maybe Jushin Thunder Liger, the old wrestler. I think he's still around, and I think he may have finally decided to hang up his boots. But it kind of feels like I'm looking a bit of that as well. As a touch, I do like the emblem that's raised on the Superman's chest. In a way, I kind of like this more than the emblem that was on the regular Superman figure. If only you could actually just take that off, though it would be kind of treading on the territories of a Kingdom Come Superman. I mean, it definitely does look good having the backdrop of the black, and then you've got this really nice metallic red kind of on the foreground of things. Really does have a neat look to it. I don't know if I've got a bit of a chip or something happening on the side. It looks like a bit of a scratch, or almost if I flake it too much, I probably would expect to find paint flaking off. That's a bit of a shame. I don't know if that's on every single figure, but I certainly notice it here on mine. He's got broad shoulder pads, neither of which, I should say, move. And then he does also have, like, just bulk. It's a whole lot of bulk. It's Iron Man if Iron Man was Superman, if that makes any sense. It does have some interesting design choices to it. You kind of have these raised pieces on the side. It's interesting that he doesn't come included with his shield or his battle axe, though it's advertised on the back of the read-up. They unfortunately sort of just left it off. Underneath all of the armor, there's this sort of meshed material that's underneath that. It's done, of course, still in plastic, but it gives you a different look. It's something different to look at versus the smooth surface of his armor. One thing I kind of like is these little raised pieces right here. They almost look like fangs sticking out from the armor. That's a nice touch. And then you sort of have a quasi-Superman logo on the lower torso around his waist section. Again, neat-looking panels overlaying one another and done in the metallic red and the metallic blue, respectively. But I don't get as excited for this armor. It's sort of one of those decisions where I almost feel like McFarlane decided he wanted to go with a Hellbat suit Batman and then wanted to find a comparable version of it for Superman. At the very least, I would have maybe given him kind of like that armor, not quite armor, but that astronaut armor that Superman wears periodically when he goes into space. I maybe would have given him that. This design is good and it looks good, pleasing to the eye, but maybe it's just the fact I don't feel as invested in this, and so maybe my heart isn't as much into collecting this particular piece as maybe my heart was in place when I collected the Hellbat suit, because that was a really neat designed armor. And I'm not really taking anything necessarily away from this design of armor, but it just doesn't, it wows me in the sense that it looks good, but it doesn't wow me in the sense that I have a lot of invested interest in it. It sort of is the same category as the Batgirl that we also had a look at. The design is good, and don't get me wrong, the design is really good on this piece, but because it's not on a design that I personally feel invested in, I don't feel as in love with the figure as maybe the person next door to me who is a big fan of the Unchained armor might really, really like this figure a lot. Anyways, though, you can take the wings, and it's entirely up to you how you want to attach them. They do rotate, so it's not you're not setting yourself stuck in place by putting them down, for example. If you do put them down, you simply can just rotate them up. So again, it's not locking you, deciding for you, okay, well, if you put them down, then you can't put them up. So you just want to put them in like that. And again, it's entirely up to you. Does that not look like Voltron's wings? Anyways, these do hinge outward as well. So based on that, will sort of dictate to you which way you want to spin this around. I feel like the wings sit this way, but I could be entirely wrong. Again, you can rotate these if you want to. So if you want to have, for example, the spikes or the points of the wings facing up, I guess that might be a better look. You can go this way as well. And it kind of gives Superman, not that he needs it, but it gives him some extra, armor on the back of his torso. For this guy's articulation, let's go ahead and run through that right now. His head rotates all the way around, and it hinges up and down, and it also rocks back and forth. For his upper torso, it's pretty much the same idea, up and down, and you can rock it back and forth. And he also has lower articulation as well. Although I do feel like when I'm kind of wanting to get access to the lower torso, there just seems like there's a lot in the way. And these things that I liked so much that reminded me of fangs kind of prick me in the process of trying to actually move the lower torso. So it does seem like you can rotate it. It's just really, really hard to get access to it. The legs split out. I mean, you could basically do a full splits with this figure. You can move the leg forward, you can move the leg back, you can rotate the top cut of the thigh. He has a double hinge on the knee, a very nice, to its credit, that's a nice double hinge on the knee. And then for the feet, they rock back and forth. You can hinge them up and down. And Superman, the Unchained armor Superman, also has articulation on the toes. Yeah, it's not a bad figure. It's, if I was a kid, I gotta certainly have that mindset periodically. We can't always think like adults. How much fun is that? As an adult, because I don't have as much the invested interest in the story, because I really haven't followed Superman Unchained. Let me just get the wing back in place here. I don't feel as excited for this particular figure as maybe if I was a kid, for example. The idea of getting Superman armor probably would seem quite appealing. And I think for that reasoning, I think I would be more interested in this figure. Sort of the adult version in me, realizing that picking up each and every one of these figures is not nonsense, because certainly I would want to be getting into the McFarlane Multiverse figure. I have. But there are some of those figures, like I think this was a good example of that. There are some figures that, from a standpoint of collecting them, I probably wouldn't collect a figure like this. From a standpoint of reviewing this guy, I would have picked him up. But I don't feel as much in love with this figure as some of the other multiverse figures that we've looked at so far. This is a bit of a hard one for me because I never really read Superman Unchained. I know none of the backstory or the reasoning why the Man of Steel even needed to don an armored costume to battle a villain known as Wraith. I would have thought the traditional blue and red tights that Superman normally wears would have been suffice enough to fight a villain, but apparently he needed armor. Sometimes when you start shoehorning armor into comics, it usually is because the designer, the artist at the time, just wants to do something cool and interesting to a character, and you instantly throw armor on him. They did that with Captain America. They certainly have done that with Batman and Spider-Man. Why not do it with Superman as well? And then, of course, the hard part about it is, while I think the figure looks cool, it would never really be a Superman that would ever make my collection. Of course, the question then is posed, why would you even be looking at this guy in the first place? Well, that sort of is the trade-off when I'm going to be reviewing figures like this. There are some figures like the Batman, the Harley Quinn, and the Superman that, from a personal standpoint, I would want to collect in the first place, whether I was even doing this thing or not. Yes, I did say thing. And then there are the other end of things where, of course, when you're looking at an entire wave of figures, you're not going to like every single character, nor are you going to be fully invested with every single character that you're looking at. So therefore, you're sort of having to look at it with a completely blank, sort of unattached feeling toward it. Sometimes that might be a good thing because you don't have a biased opinion towards it, but I guess that could be the opposite as well. If you don't really like the character having that costume, I guess in a way you sort of are biased towards liking the figure or not. For what the figure is, being it has nice metallic colors and he's sort of armored up, sure, okay, I can get on board that. It's a neat looking Superman. Would it ever be a Superman that would ever make the shelves of my collection space? Probably not. Probably not. But needless to say, I did pick it up. I can't fault it for being armored. I can't fault it for being metallic. And I can't fault it for being, in a way, a cool looking Superman. It's just not my Superman. And boy, I do ever sound old for making a statement like that. You ever do that? You ever pick up a line of figures? I'm sure I'm not the only one that's done this. Picked up a wave of figures, maybe with the intent of either building something, like one of those collect and connect waves, or you just want to get the entire line. Maybe you're not interested in every single figure that makes up the wave, and that's perfectly fine too. You don't have to be sold on the idea of loving every single figure that makes up an entire wave. Like I said in the beginning when we started having a look at these figures in the Multiverse line, I knew there were going to be highs and I knew there were going to be lows. Superman here doesn't have a low in the standpoint that he's badly constructed. He simply is just a low because I don't have any invested interest in a character design looking like this. Either way, let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of the Superman in the Unchained armor. I guess for what he is, he's not bad looking. Just like I said, he's not my Superman. Of the two, I prefer the Hellbat suit. What do you guys prefer of the two armored heroes? Do you prefer the Hellbat suit Batman, or do you prefer the Unchained armor Superman? Either way, hit that subscribe button down below if you are new to this channel, liking the content that I'm putting out on a regular basis, and maybe want to stay on board, run this train till it reaches the go station, and see all the content that's coming on here on a regular basis. Well, thank you for that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and periodically stay tuned. Keep those peepers peeled, as certainly there's going to be a whole ton of videos coming your way. We are still going to be having a look at the Green Arrow figure. I mean, that is going to be another, maybe it will be a high, maybe it'll be a low. The figure does look good, so you never know, maybe it might be another high. But in order to find that out, you're just going to have to stay tuned to this channel. And certainly as well, not only are we going to be looking at DC Multiverse figures, but there's going to be a whole multiverse of different figure reviews coming your way as well. So a whole lot of stuff coming your way. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.